Hello everyone. So I'm back again with another video. It wasn't too long since the last video. I think it was maybe a couple of days, maybe a week. Again, trying to be a little consistent with them. I actually had a great idea for a video maybe, I don't know, last week, but just didn't get a chance to really record. But I'm definitely going to talk about it in this video. So for this video, as I mentioned in my last video, I talked a little bit about the teaching at my specific schools. Not too much detail, I kind of just, bridged the surface. But I think for this video, it's going to be more specific to the schools, but more so I think tips for teaching, especially given my situation. Maybe it'll help you if you're interested in teaching or you're just curious about how it works, more of the ins and outs, or again, more so like tips or little things that you can do. So as I mentioned in my past video, I work for Interact. Interact is a dispatch company which basically hires ALTs and they place you in schools. So again, as I mentioned before, I work in 6 different schools, which is pretty rare, I think. Most of my other coworkers or people in my program are all over the place, but they usually have maybe 1 or 2 schools. Some have maybe 3, but nowhere near 6 for the most part. Granted, some of those schools I only teach at maybe like once a month or a couple times a month. So basically, with the schools that I have, they're very different. Not only the students, but just the way that the classes are run. So there's a lot of variety, which is kind of nice. Since having 6 schools, I can meet a lot of different people, as well as I guess keep things kind of fresh. You're never really in the same place. I only teach at one school twice a week, and the others just once a week. And again, like I said, some are just once a month. But on average, it's nice because it's a lot of variety. It's not so good in the sense that you don't really get to make as strong of a connection with maybe some of the students or staff because you don't see them that much. So it's kind of like, a balance. It's a trade-off. But for me, I like it. It's pretty nice so far. Like I said in my last video, I'm enjoying teaching specifically, in my schools right now. So a little bit more specific for my schools. Like I said, it's very different. Some schools, the students are, amazing at English, and at other schools, they're kind of just okay. You kind of have to be very versatile. You have to kind of be able to feel the air with, what your students might know, as well as the teachers. So working as an ALT or an assistant language teacher, you're working with a Japanese teacher, a Japanese English teacher. They're in the classroom with you, and they help you usually with like a lesson, depending what the lesson is. It's a wide variety. Some classes I've done, more drills as a kind of lesson. They gave me kind of what they wanted me to do. I did it. Or some of them said, come up with a game to play, something specific for the lesson, or just the game in general. And there are a variety of things you can do when you get that flexibility in some of the schools. Again, just depends on the lesson. I know kind of ahead of time, or when I get there. So a little bit more so about like the day. For me, keep in mind every situation is different. Every ALT working for Interact or a different company, there are lots of companies to work for as an ALT, a lot of different opportunities, and I'll probably go into that in a different video for those that are interested in the different ways to kind of teach in Japan. But in my situation, a typical day will be I'll get there in the morning, maybe like 9, and I'll work until about 3 or 4, give or take. That may change. It also means that when I'm there, I might teach 1 class, I might teach 3 classes, I might teach all the classes. It works very similar to the US, or those of you that live in the US and kind of know. You have periods throughout the day. So again, you have 6 periods, let's say, within a day. So if I'm only teaching 2 classes, you kind of get a lot of free time. You can use that to prepare for other lessons that you have to do that day. Sometimes, you'll come in and you have the first 2 periods free, but you teach third. So you can kind of prep. They'll go over with you what they want you to do. You can prepare and go from there. A great thing that I've been able to do is study Japanese. My Japanese is okay. I studied Japanese for a long time in college, but I never really used it. I went to Japan in 2012, so I was here before, but for a short period of time, about 5 months or so. So I didn't really use my Japanese from 2012-ish to now, so it kind of just disappeared. So I'm relearning a lot of what I used to know, as well as things I don't know. But I'm able to teach or study Japanese in the schools, which is great. The teachers are they highly approve of you doing it, at least in my schools. Some situations are different. They might not be as fond, but just ask. Anything I wasn't too sure of, I asked. Which is kind of like, I guess, one of the first big tips is if you don't know something, just ask. I honestly didn't know when I first started if I could go out, the office. So you basically have a teacher's office. Sorry, my hair is driving me crazy. You have like a teacher's office or like a staff room. And basically what you can do is when you're not teaching, you're in that room. You can walk, you can go to other classes, you can do a million different things. And they're perfectly fine with it. But I didn't know the first, week, and I was kind of just like, oh my god, what should I do? Kind of thing. And they were actually telling me, they're like, you can go walk if you want. So it was kind of funny. But yeah, definitely just ask questions. Interact, the company I work with specifically, they have kind of their own system of, if you have other questions that you don't want to ask the school directly, or, specific things that you should handle with the company you work with and not the school. When you work with a dispatch company like Interact, for the most part, I won't get into the specifics, but you work with Interact not so much directly with the school, in a sense. Depends. Again, every situation is different. But yeah, you can kind of freely do what you want to do, within reason, of course. But yeah, you can study Japanese, which is great. The teachers highly approve of me studying Japanese. They love it when I ask them questions like, oh, how do you say this? Or more so, how would you use this in an actual conversation? Which is great. It's one of the best tools that you can use for learning Japanese, are the Japanese teachers. Again, if they're not busy, I'm always kind of making sure that they're not too busy, because, sometimes they might not seem busy, but they are, so things like that. But I think the second biggest tip is, again, back to being versatile. You want to make sure that you're flexible in working with the Japanese teachers as well as how you teach. I'm not the most outgoing person in the world, but this job has definitely kind of opened me up more. I can stand in a room of 40 students now, and it's only been like a couple weeks since I've been teaching. I feel comfortable just talking about my first day, first lesson, which is like an intro about you, and getting to know the students. I feel completely comfortable doing it. And when I first started, I would have never thought that I would feel comfortable standing in front of 40 students talking about myself without sounding crazy. Yeah, it's really not that bad. It'll definitely help you kind of branch out. Don't be afraid to kind of step out of your comfort zone. I mean, you hear that a lot, but especially in teaching in Japan, it's a great thing to do. You'll find that you get a lot of different opportunities just from being open-minded. The third kind of biggest tip, I think, would be make sure to interact with the Japanese teachers as well as the students in school, even during your free time. I was actually walking around last week in one of my schools, and I was around the science classrooms, and I was just, looking at the different things that they had, like posters, and the science teacher actually popped up. She was really nice. She started talking to me. She introduced herself, and she actually showed me, the whole science room, gave me, a tour of the animals that they had. It was great, and funny enough, after we talked for a bit, she invited me later that day, in school, to sit down and have coffee or tea with her, which I was shocked, because normally Japanese people tend to be very shy. You have to start conversations. Most of the people in the school, if not everyone, will know that you're there, that they have a new ALT in the school. But not everyone necessarily will, be able to talk to you because you specifically teach English, and, again, she's a science teacher, so, you might not necessarily meet them naturally. But, yeah, I was shocked, and we had a great discussion later that day for a whole period, basically, and I got invited to meet with her when I teach there. So she said, come in, we can, talk this period. And it was really cool. It was great to get that, social interaction with someone that's Japanese, because her English is fairly good. Lucky for me, because I can kind of mix Japanese and English, so it makes it a little easier instead of just having to use, Japanese only. But again, that opportunity arose because I was just wandering about, of the school. I didn't do anything special. I got really lucky, obviously, but again, just walking around, the opportunity popped up, and now when I teach there twice a week. One of those days, I can go and talk to her for a whole period, which is awesome because it's really nice of her to, extend that invitation to me. So yeah, again, go out there, try to meet new people, especially in the schools when you can, and again, just take an interest in your school. Um, Again, for me, I have six, so it's a little difficult to, go to certain events that the schools have. They have like school festivals or sports days, things like that. It can be difficult to go to all of them, but anything that you can go to, or again, if you have free time to wander about your school, I definitely recommend doing it. It's actually a lot of fun. I mean, I've learned a lot about not only the schools, but some of the students. I would see some of my students in pictures for like clubs, which is great for actually teaching because then you can kind of introduce a subject with more of a similar interest with students. Luckily for me, I'm pretty big into, I guess, what senior high school students are into, which usually includes like anime or video games or certain sports. So it's pretty easy for me to relate to the students, luckily. Not all the Japanese teachers obviously have those same interests, but when I find out a student plays volleyball, I can easily talk about that. Or tennis, it's easy to kind of use that in the classroom when you know ahead of time what your students are, interested in. That makes making the lessons a lot easier. Um, so I think for the fourth biggest tip, I don't even know how many tips I have to be honest, but it's just a whole bunch of different ideas. But basically, for I guess the next tip, use all your resources. Use all your resources. There are many different ways to become better at teaching. Um, and for teaching English as an ALT, it's not so much about how you teach it in the sense of like the material. You don't have to be the best teacher in the world in terms of how you teach the material, but it's more about attitude. If you go in with a giant smile and you're energetic and happy, you could bomb a lesson. You can make a million mistakes, but you're more likely to get a better response because you showed effort. Obviously having both is ideal, but just being energetic and being open-minded and versatile and just, again, being happy will go a long way, especially with students that don't like English very much. If you kind of counteract that I hate English attitude with yay English, it makes things a lot easier for you as a teacher, as well as just for the students, again, with the lessons that you're teaching and things like that. So yeah, again, for the fourth tip, just go about using all the resources you have. Anything that you can use to make your class easier, more interesting, more accessible in a sense, go ahead and do it. And for the last tip, I guess it'll be the last tip, try not to make this video as long, but I find myself rambling a lot, so sorry about that. But for those that are interested, that's a plus. But I think for my last tip, it would be, let's see, try to talk to, like I said before, the Japanese teachers and the students, but try to get more actively involved in what they like. What I mean by that is, from talking to some of the Japanese teachers, I've learned that they're interested in certain sports or certain movies, certain activities. One of my teachers likes Marvel movies. I was like, what? Because I was just surprised. I didn't know. That's what she was interested in. But I find that Japanese teachers, especially, are more open to talk to you. A lot of the Japanese teachers are nervous for the most part. Every situation is different, but they're usually pretty shy to talk to, new people, just like anyone else. But when you talk about something that they have an interest in, it's much easier for them to open up, just like it would be with any of us. I mean, if I meet someone new that I've never met before, I'm usually pretty shy. But if you start talking about specific interests, it's like, oh my God, I like that, and you like that. It's pretty easy to start a conversation. So, really listen to what they're into, so you can kind of use that to start conversations or to get them to, kind of talk a little bit more with you when they can. And it'll make it a lot easier to get to know them. Again, which is going to make your life easier, and it's a great way to not only improve your, conversation skills, your Japanese, your English maybe, but you can meet a lot of new people doing that, and it'll make things a lot easier when it comes to teaching as well. Again, if they're more open to talk to you, it'll be easier when figuring out what to do for lessons, or what they want you to do. You'll have a better idea from their personality what they're looking for. But yeah, so I know I kind of rambled a bit, but hopefully it was all good information. Again, that's kind of more of little specifics. I mean, if you have any questions, just let me know. Again, it's only been a few weeks since I've been teaching, but again, I'm still enjoying it so far. I might go into specifics, like in terms of the schools if someone's interested, like, more specifics for the day-to-day, or anything like that, or different events the schools might have if there's interest. I think for the next video that I do, I know some people were asking for me to show my really tiny apartment, so maybe I'll do that, but I have a lot of different ideas, so hopefully I can go ahead and make it a little shorter next time, or again, if it is longer, hopefully it's interesting to watch. So yeah, maybe either that or something along the lines of different events happening in schools. I'm actually going to a major event this weekend. It's the Tokyo Game Show. I'm really excited, so I'm actually hoping I can take a lot of pictures. Maybe I can record some footage and make a video out of that. Again, going over what's going to happen there. I've never been there before, so this is my first time. I've watched different things from the game show and back in the States, but again, it'll be the first time going, so maybe I can get some cool stuff and make a video with that. But again, yeah, hopefully it was helpful. Hopefully you learned something new, and hopefully the lighting was better. I got a lot of comments from different friends and family that my last video was a little dark in the sense of the lighting, so I tried to make it a little brighter, change the background sort of where I was sitting, so hopefully that made it better, just easier to see. But yeah, again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and again, if you're curious about anything more specific with teaching in Japan with the schools, the way they work, just let me know, and I'd love to talk about it.